mean, it looks okay. It looks good enough.
Yeah.
If you're downloading, then yes, that'll definitely
All right. So, Celebi, I'm gonna start right now. So, as you can see here, I'm gonna select ConstLab.NET Core. This is just the kind of project we're gonna use because it's easiest to explain. So, let me create a new project. I'm gonna call it. I'll just call it ConstLab1. Just put it somewhere on your disk, and I'm gonna put it into a folder called Sandbox. Okay, create. Am I enjoying Visual Studio? No. Okay, so let's go and take a look at what we have on screen. Or do I need to zoom in a little bit? Is this big enough for you, Keller, right now? Can you see this? This is pretty big. Okay, good. So let's take a look at what's happening right now. So we're using system. What this means is that we're using all the code that system has right now. So everything that's in system we can use, which is good. You want to use stuff from the system. Then we create a namespace. A namespace is just a way to organize stuff. So just think about this namespace as like a tab in a binder. You can reference everything inside the namespace as being inside a namespace. So if I wanted to say let's turn to the tab of ConstLab1, and then we can look at everything inside of that tab in the binder. Does that kind of make sense? Yes. So in this case, in C Sharp, we just need to have a namespace initially, just so the program knows where to look in the first place. So we just need to have a namespace. And by default, this is the default namespace, so it's what the program's going to look for. Next up, we're going to create a class called program. So in C Sharp, you need to create an initial class just to have anything work in the first place. So in this case, we're just going to create a class. It doesn't have to be called program, but it should be called program, just because it makes things easier to read. And essentially, all classes is it's like a never folder. It has well, maybe like a folder isn't a very good way to say it. It's like goodness, what's a good way to say it? It it's a thing. It can have properties to it. Like for example, let's say we have a block, or what's a better way to say it? So say this is like a Minecraft block. So we can have properties in class. For example, the block can have a color. So we can say the block has a property called a color. The block also has another property called its weight, for example. Um, a block can also do things. For example, the block can jump. For example, the block can jump. So essentially, all this is a method of the block. A method is just a thing that the block can do. It's probably easier to just call it a function. It's something the block can do. It's a function of the block. In this case, we call this the main function of the block. Or in this case, if I wanted to bring this back to program, this is the main function of the program. So this is what is called first when we run it. This is what is being executed first in terms of code when we run our program in the first place. Void, let's just ignore these for a second. We don't even need to talk about these for a while. But essentially all we care about is that this is the main method of the program, and this will be called first. Everything inside of here, everything inside these curly braces, is what is inside the function, and that's what will be called first in order from top to bottom. So yeah, any questions so far? Any questions so far? Poke poke.
I don't have any.
No, specifically from Color V.
Oh,
Cool.
sorry.
Okay, good. So let's just go ahead and take a look at what's happening inside of here. So what is this doing? Well, we know that if we run this program, we hit run here, it's going to do what? It's going to print out hello world right here. So we know that the first thing that happens when we run this program is it's going to go ahead, it's going to execute the main function in program, and it's going to write a line with the message hello world. Cool? Cool. All right. So what happens if we want to do another thing after this? Well, let's go ahead and say we want to write another line. So console.write line. What do you want to say? Let's say something else. So we said another thing, right? So what's this going to do? It's going to print out the line hello world, and it's going to print out the line something else. Let's make sure it actually works. And look, it said hello world, then something else. Wonderful. Everything is working as expected. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about variables. So what is a variable? Well, a variable is essentially, as I think one of the people explained earlier, it's like a box. You can put things into the box, and then whatever's in the box is what's inside the variable. So for example, if I create a new variable, let's say int I, this is going to create a new variable called I. Now what does the int mean here? Well, int is essentially what the type of the variable is. It's what kind of data you're putting inside the box. So in this case, the type of data you're putting inside the box is an integer number. So int just means, it's just short for integer. An integer is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, negative 152. Any kind of number that is that doesn't have a decimal place, that's an integer value. So int I can be any of those numbers. Now, how do we store value inside the variable I? Well, we can do that by saying I equals something on the left side. Now note you have to put I on the left side equivalent sign to assign whatever's on the right side of the equivalent sign into I. So if we wanted to put something to I, let's say 0 into I would do that. Sure. I need to drink some water. All right. Okay, let's see. Right, so in this case, we took the value of 0 and put into I. Now let's say you want to take the value of I and put it somewhere else. Let's say we have another variable. Let's call it int j. So how do we take the value of I and put it into j? Killer Bee, do you have any ideas? All right. Well, I'll show you how then. We can take the value of j and put in the I by saying I equals j. Now what this says is, because we have the equal sign here, this will take whatever is in j and it'll put it into I. Now of course, j, this is going to say there is nothing inside j, so we should probably make j equal something first. J equals 2, just to make sure there's something going to I in the first place. Make sense? So we declared, okay, good, great. So let's say we want to write the value of I out to the command. Yeah?
It's officially past midnight for me.
Oh yeah, if you need to go, you're not required to listen here for anything.
Right. It's past midnight for me. I'm gonna have to head off.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a nice night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks for the explanation. Definitely get side of things.
No problem. Thank you for bearing with me.
More.
Okay, bye. All right, so where are we? Let's see, what do we want to do now? Let's go ahead and try, or what were we doing again, Keller? Oh, right, we were trying to output the value of I. So if we want to do that, we can just say console dot write line, and then just put I there. So what this will do is this will take the value of I, and it'll write it as a line to console. So what do you think the console's going to have now? It's going to have hello world, then it's going to print out something else, and then it's going to print out the value of I. Let's go ahead and run it and check that really quick. So it says hello world, something else, and then 2. Everything look good? Any questions? Ah, yes, it was 0, but it's not 0 anymore. Why is that? So let's take a look at what happened here. So we declared a variable I, we set the value of I to 0. Then we create a variable j, then we set the value of j to 2. Now, right now we have a variable I with a value of 0 and a variable j with a value of 2. But what happens when we say I equals j? Well, they won't both appear because I only has one value. What we did here is we took the value of j, we put it into I, so now the value of I is also 2. The value of I is no longer 0 because we set the value of I to the value of j. Yeah, essentially. So in this, essentially all the equal sign means is that we're going to take the value of whatever's to the right of the equal sign and plop it into whatever variable we have to the left of it. So in this case, we took 0, we stuffed it into I. We took 2, we stuffed it into j. We took the value of j, which is 2, and we stuffed it into I. So this is the same thing as saying I equals 2 in this case, because j is 2. What? Oh yeah, that's what would happen. If we didn't do this at all, if I just deleted this line and ran it, yeah, the value of I when we output it would be 2. See? Or sorry, 0 because it's 0. Sorry. But yeah. Gotcha. Alright, let's talk about if statements, shall we? No, let's not talk about let's talk about addition. So, what happens if say I equals 0 plus 5 or 4? Well, guess what that's gonna do? It's gonna do that. It's gonna say I equals 4, right? Because 0 plus 4 is 4. And we can check that by doing that. Wonderful. Additionally, if I just say I equals j plus 2, I is going to be equivalent to 2 plus 2, right? So this should output 4. Let's see if that's true. Wonderful, it works. Any questions? Well, that's good. Okay, let's go into if statements then. So an if statement is essentially, let me just show you the basic syntax. So it says if something, then it does something. Now it does whatever's inside these curly brackets if this something is true. So one typical use for the if statement is to compare something with something else. So let's say if I equals j, then console dot write line I equals j. So this will write the line to the console I equals j if I is equivalent to j. Any questions? y2 equals what? I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. Oh, why did double equals? Well, so in C#, there's a difference between a single equals and a double equals. So a single equals is an assignment. It means an assignment. It's going to assign the value of whatever these are into the value of this variable here. So in this case, we assign the value of 2, 2j. We assign the value of 0 plus 4, 2y. We assign the value of j plus 2, 2i. However, in this case, the double equals means something else. It means it's a comparison. It does a comparison. So this is true if j is equivalent to i. So it just means a different thing. If we only had a single equals, it would say it would have an error because it's asking for if this is true and this is trying to set a value to something else. It doesn't make any sense. If we put a double equal here, it makes more sense because we're trying to compare two variables and see if they're equivalent. Any questions? Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Or actually, oh goodness. Yeah, sure. I'll make myself available. How about well, what time do you want to pick it up again at? All right. How about 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time tonight? I can do that. That's I think no, that's way too late. That's 12 o'clock that's 12 o'clock midnight for you, isn't it? All right then. Okay, well, I guess I'll enable your excuse me, what? Sure. Sounds good. All right. I will. Okay, I'll post the general and yeah. So Killer has to go.